Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Hole. My name is Cole, and today we're going to travel back to 2003 to talk about an album that was definitely a high school favorite of mine. This is 2003's Chutes Too Narrow by the Shins. It's kind of like indie pop slash folk pop. A lot of acoustic stuff going on, lots of melodies, lots of hooks. I love it. So let's dive into track number 1, which is called Kissing the Lipless.
Called to see if your back was still aligned and your sheets were growing grass all on the corners of your bed. But you got too much to wear on your sleeves. It has too much to do with me, and secretly I want to bury in the yard the gray remains of a friendship scar. You told us of your new life where you've got someone coming round, gluing tinsel to your crown. He's got you talking pretty loud. Remember, you're railing hard in your criminal lies. You say you're still in love. If it's true, what can be done? It's hard to leave all these moments behind.
Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare scenario, I would imagine, because basically you've got this man and a woman, and they were friends for a while until one night, I imagine, they got drunk or something, and they slept together. And the woman clearly had a big crush on this guy, and now she's in love with this guy. But the man doesn't really feel the same way, especially after he sleeps with her. He realizes that, like, this is not what he wants. And basically, their friendship just got totally destroyed when they slept with each other because, you know, from her perspective, she doesn't just want to be friends with this guy. She wants to be with this guy. But he's like, you know, I kind of liked it better when we were friends and we would hang out and there wasn't this like weird sexual intimacy thing going on between us. So basically she had to move away to forget about this guy. I mean, this poor woman, I totally understand where she's coming from. I mean, in my own life, there are a couple women who I will not name, but there are a couple women in my life who clearly like me, but I don't necessarily like them that way back. And if I wanted to, I could probably sleep with these people. But, you know, I'm a nice guy in the sense that, you know, I don't want to mess with people's feelings. And so I don't want to do that. I enjoy our friendship, right? I'm not friend zoning them. It's established that I want to be their friend, even though there's, you know, this sexual kind of tension between us possibly. So, you know, I understand what this song is trying to get at because it's a really sticky situation when you cross that line from being just a friend into like, okay, we've had sex, so, you know, are we going to go somewhere with this or what's the deal here? So this poor lady, you know, what can I say? But anyways, let's move on to track number 2, which is called Mine's Not a High Horse.
After that confrontation, you left me wringing my cold hands. We shared some information we might not recover from, and I watch your convictions melt like ice cubes in an ocean. You were so poorly cast as a malcontent. You've got them all on your side. That just makes more for doubt.
So this is kind of an interesting song. What it makes me think of specifically is how when you reveal your opinions on something, you're really exposing yourself to the world. You're moving from being slightly anonymous to an active actor in whatever situation you're in, whatever friend group you're in, or community group that you're a part of. When you start really speaking your mind, that's when you open the floodgates potentially to either like angering people or distancing people from you, because like a very mild example of that might be you all go see a movie and everybody's talking about how much they loved it, but you didn't like it at all. And you could be that guy who's very honest and just says, that you didn't like it, and you could tell them why you didn't like it, and you could run the risk of being a little bit ostracized from these people. I mean, obviously, that example is fairly mild and minor, but I can think of other ones where, like, if you actually said what's on your mind, you might piss a lot of people off. Like, for example, anything political or even religious, especially here in America. Obviously, if you've got like a really liberal person talking to a really Republican person, and they both say what's on their mind, you're gonna get some fireworks going on probably, because they're very, very differing. Their opinions are very, very differing. So, basically when you go through life and you interact with people, you make the constant decision at all times about how honest do you want to be with this person. Do you not care what they think? Are you willing to just say your opinions no matter what? Or are you somebody who's a little bit more diplomatic, like I am, who would much rather have more friends, or who would much rather, how would I put it, be able to like slip in and out of groups without like ostracizing myself, right? So it's a conscious decision that we all make in our everyday lives. How badly do we want to tell the truth? Because, there's a thing called white lies, right, which are, I would argue, very, very good decisions to make in certain situations. Sometimes you want to tell a white lie. You don't want to say exactly how you feel because you don't want to hurt somebody or something like that. So for example, here's an example with my channel. Let's do a little tangent. So on my channel, I don't really talk about albums that I dislike. And the reason I do that is because I know that there are people out there who will like those albums. And why do I want to make them feel bad that I don't like them, right? Because if I pick an album that I hate and I bash it and I spend 30 minutes bashing it, there are plenty of people who like this album and they might watch my channel and they might watch my review and they might feel bad because, their favorite song or whatever, somebody completely bashed. And I just don't like that. I don't like that negativity. So that's kind of my specific version of what's going on with this song, you could say. But anyways, that was a tangent. Let's move on to track number 3, which is called So Says I.
And I trust to the golden door. I was strolling on a stone again, pulling teeth from a prince of gold. When had a tragic opera in my mind, and a tone of a need's eye, in which every soul is duty bound to uphold the statutes of ordinary life. The fatal thought of the red age, 'cause it was nothing like we'd ever dreamt. Our lust for life, we got away with the rent we hated, 'cause it made no money. Nobody's saved no one's life this night. So it's burned out our uniform.
So the lyrics at the beginning of this clip are kind of like hard to figure out and very poetic, but the chorus thankfully really stood out to me in the sense that I imagine there's this guy who was like a teenager, and while he was a teenager, he had these big dreams of finally getting his own place, of finally like starting his band and playing in gigs and making a name for himself. But now he's in his 20s, it sounds like. He's got his apartment, which he can barely afford, so it's probably not a good apartment. It's probably not in a good place. And, his band is not doing very well. It's just so hard to get noticed, even if you're really good. I mean, just think of like bands like Husker Du, for example, which I love, who are pretty much just cult bands, even though I would argue they're one of the best bands I've ever heard. Even a band like that is basically obscure to most people. So even if you're really, really good at what you do, it almost doesn't matter. It's almost a stroke of luck if you succeed or not, you know, because it depends on like how much are you willing to advertise, who do you know? Do you know the right people? You know, did the right person happen to attend your gig? All sorts of stuff can or can't happen to determine whether you're going to succeed or not. So this poor guy, you know, he had all these dreams in high school as a teenager about living on his own and, you know, making a bunch of friends and playing in his band and getting signed and maybe having like a hit song or something. But the reality has set in and he is probably doubting his life choice here. So I can totally identify with him, this poor guy. But anyways, let's move on to track number 4, which is called Young Pilgrims.
A cool and wet November dawn, and there are no barking sparrows, just emptiness to dwell upon. I fell into a winter slide and ended up the kind of kid who goes down chutes too narrow, just eking out my measly pie. But I learned fast how to keep my head up, 'cause I know there is this side of me that wants to grab the yoke from the pilot and just fly the whole mess into the sea. Another slow train to the coast.
Oh man, our poor hero. Now it sounds like he's got seasonal affective disorder and it's November and he feels completely miserable and sad and he's just barely hanging on because he says that he's imagining himself grabbing the steering wheel, or what does he say? He says he wants to grab the yoke from the pilot and just fly the whole mess into the sea. So I interpret that as like he's just barely not like committing suicide. So he's really down in the dumps. He's really depressed. He's got the winter depression thing going on, which I used to have for a while until I started taking antidepressants. But what the song also makes me think of is he's also to some degree acknowledging the fact that this is just a temporary thing, that most likely come springtime, come summertime, he's going to start feeling really, really good. He's going to start having energy and motivation, and he'll be able to think straight and all these sorts of things. He'll be able to be interesting when he's around people because your thoughts come back to you. So to some degree, he's acknowledging that this is just a temporary thing, that there's a part of him somewhere within his, you know, brain or whatever that is, you know, energized and that is just lying dormant. So he got to get through this phase that he's going through. He just has to get through it. So I totally identify with him in this situation because I've been there multiple times for many years, up until a few years ago when I finally started taking antidepressants. So I feel for this guy. Don't crash your plane into the sea, man. Don't do it. It's not worth it. But anyways, let's move on to track number 5, which is called Saint Simon.
Step into the night, since I don't have the time nor mind to figure out the nursery rhymes that helped us out and make a sense of our lives. The cruel, uneventful state of apathy releases me. I value them, but I won't cry every time one's wiped out. I'll try hard not to give in, batten down to feather wind. Read my head at this pretense, allow myself no mock defense. Step into the night.
So on this song, he talks a little bit about what it's like to feel apathetic all the time, where you just don't really care, right? You don't really feel very much when you watch a cool movie or something or listen to a great song. You just kind of listen to it or you watch it and you're just like, okay, that was good, whatever. Or maybe you go on a trip to some place, some exotic place, and you're just looking around and you're like, okay, it's beautiful, but whatever. I don't really feel amazing. I've been there. I'm the kind of guy, unfortunately, when I go traveling somewhere, I recognize that this is a really cool scenic place that I'm in, wherever it is, but I just kind of stand there apathetic like, all right, well now I'm here, so, okay, what next? What are we going to do next? I have trouble just enjoying things like that, kind of like this guy. And at the same time, he's also, like I do, recognizing that a couple things in life kind of get you out of that, one of which primarily is falling in love with somebody. I definitely can identify with that, where, having a crush on some girl and she likes you back and then you fall in love is like one of the few things, no matter how depressed I am, that lifts me out of my state of sadness. Even if I was depressed, if that happened to me, I would definitely feel a lot less apathetic. But when you're single and alone and especially during like these COVID times when you can't really do much, it's very easy to just kind of get really bored, to kind of, feel like life is not that exciting anymore, and you're just kind of surviving. You're just kind of living your day just to survive, and that's about it. So I've been there. This poor guy, he's just barely, as we've mentioned on the last track, he's just barely holding on. He's just barely not crashing his jet into the sea. So, oh my goodness. And it's kind of funny because this album sounds really poppy and upbeat, but the lyrics are apparently none of that. So that's kind of funny, in my opinion. But anyways, we're going to move on to track number 7, which is called Pink Bullets.
I was just bony hands as cold as a winter pole. You held a warm stone out and you flowing blood to hold. Oh, what a contrast you were, with boots in the hearth. My timid young fingers held a decent animal. Over the ramparts you tossed the scent of your skin and some foreign flowers, tied to a brick, sweet as a song. The years have been short, but the days were long.
So this song is kind of open to interpretation, I would say, but it makes me think of somebody who, again, he's depressed, but what he's thinking is he doesn't like most of the people that he encounters. He just thinks a lot of them are brutes, as he puts it, which I also kind of interpret as he thinks a lot of people are just kind of fake, right? They don't actually say what they feel or how they feel. They don't say what's on their mind. They're not like real humans. They're just kind of like cookie cutter people, right? He wants to encounter somebody who's a real person, who has actual opinions that aren't just based on someone else's, like some group's opinions, because I agree with him. Like most of the time when you encounter somebody, as I mentioned earlier, you don't really want to run the risk of saying exactly what's on your mind because that might ostracize you. But at the same time, he kind of wants to meet somebody who's like that because it'd be such a fresh and new experience. It would be such a relief to finally interact with somebody who has their own thoughts, who, feels like a unique soul, who's not just like a liberal or a Republican or a Christian or an atheist, or a hipster or whatever it is. He wants to encounter somebody who is, just full of random different personality types, or however you might put it, So it kind of sounds like he met some girl who fits the bill. So he's feeling excited again. You know, he was part of the reason he was depressed for so long is because he felt like everybody in his life is just really boring and stupid and uninteresting. But now he's got this girl in his life who has, how does he put it? New flowing blood to hold. So like, I guess she touched him and now he feels this new warmth in his blood because before he had cold, bony hands. So that's what the song means to me, is he's finally met somebody who actually seemed like a real person who's not just full of shit, right? But anyway, so that's that song. Let's move on to, I believe it's called Turn to Square. Let me check. Yep, track number 8, Turn to Square.
She's shown up bright like a knife, wearing tennis shorts made of stripes, hand in hand to the grass, and we got it right. Got it nice, nice, nice. Just a glimpse of an ankle, and I react like it's 1805, and I'd swim to the poles just to find the right side of the light. It'll take all of my strength to give up, but you all know I tried, so forget about it, girl. My head's like a kite when such a creature I sight. To town where your feet leave no prints on the ground.
Oh man, our poor guy. This song is kind of funny, but also a little depressing because what I imagine what's going on is there's this perfect woman that he's got a crush on, somebody who's like a 10 out of 10 for a variety of reasons. She's probably really beautiful or really smart or really funny or all those things. Basically, she's his ideal woman. And it sounds like maybe they got really drunk at a party or something and they hooked up. And now he's just completely infatuated with her because as far as he's concerned, he's already halfway there. They hooked up. So there must be some part of him or some part of her that really likes this guy. But of course, the girl who knows her worth, she knows how beautiful and how much of a catch she is. So she's waiting around for, you know, that ideal man who's got a great job and he's really tall and he's really handsome is what it sounds like. Because after this clip, I couldn't clip the whole thing, it would be too long. After this clip, he says a really important line. He says, it gets worse every time that we talk. I can't afford to be just one in a flock. So in other words, he got lucky once with this girl. He slept with her once, but now she's drifting away from this guy. He's getting friend zoned by this girl, you know, because she's being disinterested in him. And he knows that the only way he's ever going to win her over and date her and marry her and have kids with her is if he is no longer just one in the flock. He's got to get like an amazing job, or he's got to become really, really successful, you know, like famous or successful or something like that. You know, he has to really make himself stand out to land one of these types of girls. And I'm sure all you guys out there know what I'm talking about. There's certain women who are just unbelievably gorgeous, and it takes a certain specific kind of guy to be able to land one of these people as your girlfriend or wife, you know. At least that's what we guys think. Probably some of you women who fall under that category are always wondering why certain guys never talk to you or never ask you out. It's because we're totally scared to. We don't want to be that one guy who asks out the really pretty girl and gets rejected and we look like a total idiot. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on with this kind of situation. So this poor guy, I know what he's talking about. I haven't been there myself, but I can put myself in his shoes. But anyways, let's move on to the last clip that I have for you guys from track 9, which is called Gone for Good.
Untie me, I've said no vow. The train is getting way too loud. I gotta leave here, my girl. Get on with my lonely life. Just leave the ring on the rail for the wheels to nullify. you must atone some. Don't leave me no phone number there. Light it down.
Man, our guy just can't catch a break on this album because now he's finally met some girl that he really likes, and they live together, right? They moved in together, but she's a stinking stone, as he puts it. She doesn't want to elope with this guy. She's just living with him, not paying any rent, and you know, they probably sleep together. They probably kiss and stuff like that. They hang out, but as far as he's concerned, like, okay, but I kind of want to marry you eventually. I kind of want to have kids with you. And it seems like you're just kind of like with me until something better comes along. You don't seem like you really want to commit to this. And so it's the fatal flaw of love that he's talking about, where like, it's one thing to finally land that girl of your dreams, but then you gotta keep working at it. And you have to hope and pray that they're also going to end up marrying you, right? Because as we all know, just because you are dating somebody, that doesn't mean they're going to be with you for the rest of their life, you know. And if a couple of years go by and you've been with this person for a few years, I mean, now you gotta start to wonder, like, am I wasting my time here? So this poor guy, he just wants to find someone who loves him, who he loves, who's going to actually like marry this dude. So, oh my gosh, our poor guy. But anyways, so that's the album. It's a lot of fun. Lots of good poppy, indie pop, folk pop hooks and melodies. I like the singing. Very memorable album. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And if you enjoyed my interpretations, please leave a like and subscribe. It'd really help me out. I really appreciate it. But yeah, that is Chutes Too Narrow. Check it out and have a good one.